Hello, innovators. I'm Todd and welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast presented by Applied Software Gray Tech Group. You're invited to join our conversation to model the future of construction innovation and the digital transformation adventure of this great industry. My guest today is Cole Porter. He's president and owner of Porter Steel, a structural steel and miscellaneous metals subcontractor that works on construction projects across the Southeast. Being born and raised in Georgia, Cole is proud to work in and be involved in the community where he grew up. In addition to his work responsibilities, he's very involved in both industry associations as well as civic service organizations. Cole is the board of directors and public policy committee for both the Gwinnett Chamber and Associated Builders and Contractors of Georgia, and he's currently the 2023-2024 president of the Rotary Club of Duluth. Welcome to the show, Cole.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun to get a fellow born and raised Georgian on the show as well. So how'd you get into the construction industry to begin with?
Well, I was born into it. So my dad started my company in 1983. So I've always called it my older brother. So it's definitely always just been a thing in our family, and I get obviously as long as I can remember, since it was before I was born. But I think just seeing my dad as a business owner and entrepreneur, and like the stresses and the rewards of that, it's just always been something that has been in my life. But I didn't always, I never really thought like, oh, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to be in construction. That wasn't really my dream, like from the beginning. But I think as I grew and became more mature and kind of reached adulthood and things, I saw the potential that it could, the potential that it could be. I think with just when it comes to leading people and the opportunities that provides, because that does align with my passions. So it's funny how things all come together.
Yeah. What about the construction industry in particular kind of pulled you in to create that alignment with kind of the leadership of people and the construction industry from how you grew up?
Yeah, well, I think, I don't think you understand it when you're young, but I think as you start getting older and you start seeing and understanding the economy more and understanding different things that go into just society as a whole, I think you start to appreciate construction a lot more. Just with the fact that I think we were created to build things and create things. And so whether you're writing a paper or whether you're structuring a company or building a building, you're building something. And so I think construction is just the most tangible part of that. So I really love that part of the construction industry, but also it's tied to every other portion of the economy. And so no portion of the economy really stands or can grow or can do badly without the construction industry being involved as well. And so that's really fascinating to me, and it ties to everything. So
yeah, I agree. Construction is such an unsung hero out there, because without construction in all its forms and facets, you have no society. Yeah,
right.
It's
Absolutely.
everything crumbles.
And usually, if you think back to like past civilizations and history and archaeology, most of what we appreciate and know about those past civilizations are construction related. It's like what they built, what stayed around, how did they build it, what did they use to build it,
It's your
who did they
lasting
use
legacy.
to build it. Yeah, it's very fascinating just to see. And then I think when you have that background and you see a movie or something, like maybe something that's futuristic and it shows New York City overgrown with whatever, my first instinct is always to say, I wonder how that was built, or that's a long lasting structure, so it's just very, very fascinating.
Yeah. Well, let's bring in the values part of it. I know that's a big priority for you. How do the core values of Porter Steel really help influence your daily operations and then your long-term vision as well for the company?
Yeah. So, I think every organization has values, whether you like it or not. But we had not done a good job of really calling those out and promoting them and pushing them. So I would say about 5 years, we started on a journey with me and my team trying to really encapsulate what are our core values and what do we want to be known for and what do we want to tell people and stand by, you know?
Mm.
And so, that's when we really did some work and we went through a few iterations of it, but essentially, we wanted it to be meaningful. We wanted it to be something that we could stand behind. Our motto that we embraced was powered by principle. And so, like, we want to make our decisions based on principles. And so, but we wanted to have for them to be memorable enough to where we could promote them to all the employees. That they could remember them, and they could understand them when we're asking them to hold to them. So,
Mm.
um, we have four core values. The first one's own it, and so just take ownership of everything that you're doing. Make sure that you understand that every part of your job affects everyone else in the company. We can't do it without you, so you got to own that part, what you're accountable for. The second one is integrity. So obviously we want to be people of our word, and we want to do what we say and stand beside what we say. But also we want to protect our reputation as well as the reputation of our coworkers, our customers, our community. The third is partnership. And that really comes from a place in the construction industry of we don't want to be transactional. We want to be relational. And so we we don't want to approach things on what can I get out of you? We want it to be, hey, I have a relationship with you. Therefore we will work together for our mutual benefit. And that's the same internally, externally, community, customers. And then the last one, which is my favorite one probably, is fail forward. And that just means that, like, we're growing, we're doing innovative things, we're trying new things, and we know we're going to make mistakes. And so there's freedom to make those mistakes, but we just ask that you learn from them and get better. So when you fail forward. And so we try to promote those in our daily speech with our employees. We cover them at every company meeting. We tell our customers that that's what they should hold us to. And we also hold our customers to those too. So, like, we want good partners, and we think it's okay that we expect people that work for us or work with us to also hold to those same values. We want to share values with people we work with. And it's okay if you're different, but it just might not be a good fit.
Mm. Yeah, I love the intentionality behind that. Really being thoughtful of this is what not only we want to hold ourselves, but also to the kind of the partners in our larger ecosystem around us. I think that's great. How do you ensure that the key values are not just kind of words up on a wall and sound good, but really get integrated into the ethos of the company, and everybody kind of gets bought into this is what the culture is. And, if you agree with it, keep fully bought in. And if you don't agree with it, maybe this isn't the right place for you.
Right. Yes. So that's a challenge. I think our greatest weapon in that fight is probably it comes from the top down. So I have to believe those values and live them out
Mm.
in our work, and we talk about them as much as possible. And we even like in our decision making, we intentionally say, "I'm making this decision because it aligns with this core value." So that
Mm.
way people can kind of see like he's not just doing that, but he's doing that because he believes in integrity or because he believes in partnership.
Right.
And so we just over communicating that, I think, helps a lot. Also, we're very mission oriented. So our mission is to change lives and to lead by example. And so we try to tie that in as well. Like, you're not just welding a beam, you're not just cutting a channel, you're not just preparing a bid. Like, you are hopefully changing lives and leading by example in a small way or a big way. And the mission has nothing to do with steel. It's just that we are using steel to accomplish that. And I think that obviously the employees and our partners have to believe us when we say that's our mission and those are our values. And that takes time. You have to prove that. You can't just it can't just be words. It can't just be words on a wall. And so that is like one of my barometers is like, do these people believe that this is real?
Yeah.
We also hire and fire and reward based on those core values. So all of our reviews have those involved. Like, how are you aligning with our core values? And that really those are really the four things that make you a right person for the company. And we just hammer it home as much as possible, but it does take time.
Yeah, yeah, I imagine. I want to pull on a thread that you mentioned earlier of being not being transactional but being relational. How does that kind of play out in living out your core values and getting people bought into what you're trying to build on a culture perspective?
Yeah, I think in the construction industry in particular, because of the nature of the industry, we are it can be very transactional because of like bidding and low
Mhm.
bids and the different regulations involved in different, like if you do anything public or with public money and stuff. So I think that environment um, breeds a bit of transactional business and
Sure.
not so much relationship. And so it is a bit different that we are saying that maybe. I think others focus on partnerships. I'm not saying that that's like innovative, um, but I think one of the biggest impacts we can make when I go into a project manager and he's having a problem with a job that he's working on or with one of our customers that's maybe treating him unfairly or treating us unfairly is when I go and I stand up for my project manager because that's our value, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I tell them, well, hey, guess what? This customer is clearly not a good partner. They're not being a good partner to us. They're seen as a transaction. They found somewhere in a contract where they can get us, and that's fine. Shame on us, for that. But we're going to be relational and we're going to be good partners. And so we have no problem firing a customer if they don't align with our values. And so when I do that in front of one of my project managers and I'm willing to take, a stand for them because of our values, like I think that just goes a really long way in saying like, wow, like we really do believe this is not just about money. Like this is
Hmm.
about like doing what we say.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's just one example, but I mean, obviously we can point to a lot of different ones.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Let's kind of double click on that. So many people say, the people over profits, but can you kind of
Yeah.
elaborate on this philosophy? How's it actually the pathway to creating profits, and then how do you maintain the balance between kind of the business growth on the one side, and then ensuring the well being of your staff to really have a good work life balance?
Right. Well, that is a good one. I think about that often because I think that it's kind of what I most liken it to is like being a generous giver. Um, I think when you have a generous heart, I think that I'm a guy that believes in God and believes that he blessings are from Him, and so I think when you have a generous heart and you're a good steward of things, I think that you have more to be a good steward over, and so I
Mhm.
think that's kind of like how I see. I think if we do the right thing and we focus on providing a great environment for people to work, uh, creating a great service to our community, creating a great product that will be remembered for what it is for a long time, then I think the profits have to come. Because I mean, obviously there's work and there's execution and there's all the processes and things too, um, but I think if you make money at the expense of people, well, eventually the people run out,
Yeah.
and then the money runs out. So I think that it's really really important. I think it is a cycle, and so I think you plant seeds with people, and it might not pay off right then. It might cost you in the beginning, but it's a lot more fun and it's a lot easier to sleep, and I think it pays off in the long run. I think it's already paying off for us in a short time, but that's just kind of like my philosophy on it. So
Yeah, I more than agree. And amen to, to that. I
yeah,
think when you when you are looking and you're taking care of the people that are working with you and making it an enjoyable and a fun space, the mechanics and the kind of the day to day execution and the operation, those generally take care of themselves. And yes, you have to have processes and checks and balances and accountability there, but if people are enjoying and happy with what they're doing and who they're doing it with, they're going to take pride in their work and want to
absolutely.
raise the standard all on their own.
Yeah. And I'll say one other thing about that. Like, so when we set our quarterly goals, obviously that involves revenue, it involves profit, like trying to set those measurables.
Mhm.
And we've had a really good year, like a really great, blessed year where we are just things are coming together and it's going really well. And a result of we have a family foundation, and so a result of that is that we've been able to give a lot, and so that's been really cool. And like to give to a nonprofit and see like what they're doing, and that's just really that makes us happy. And so
Mhm.
we're in a leadership meeting, and my executive vice president, he's like my right hand guy, and he says, "What if we set our goals on instead of our revenue and our profit, like how much we could give at the end of each quarter? Like that was our goal,
Mhm.
because we know we have to make profit for us to give,
Right.
but but like that's really what we're enjoying the most. Like and of course I want the employees to be taken care of. I want everyone to make a lot of money and to be really taken care of and have great retirements and all those things. But I think framing it around like our focus is not just profit. Like we want,
Mhm.
of course, we're capitalists and we believe profit's essential. But our focus really is on making impact in the lives of everyone in the company, but also in the community. So
Yeah. I love that. It's building the sense of purpose too
yeah,
of getting people inspired. You said I forget the exact wording of it, but it's just not uh, Porter Steel is not necessarily about the steel aspect of it, but it's about the people that are there. And I think what you're doing there of putting the goal on, hey, how much can we give? And then all the rest kind of we work backwards from there.
yeah,
The profits take care of itself. I think it's a really cool, unique perspective too.
yeah.
What's the have you had pushback on why are we focusing on this when our business is based over here?
Uh, I think I don't know if it's been pushback, but I think there's been like a little bit of confusion,
Mm.
of like trying to get. I think what it really comes from is that when you first tell somebody, "Hey, you're changing lives by grinding that rail," okay, like that's a hard pill to swallow, and so I think it takes some. Oh, they're basically the first instinct is this guy is just blowing smoke and is just trying to say something frou-frou that sounds nice.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been the big thing. The initial resistance or pushback is like, okay. And it's usually from the guys that are farthest away from like the management decisions and things.
Mm.
But I think once we talk about it enough and once we show through our actions that we believe what we're saying, when we have a quarterly lunch and we're like, hey guys, we were able to give to like this women's clinic and to this food pantry and the rails that you grinded on, they were able to be installed at this office building where 10,000 people are going to be employed and they're going to pass by that every like when you start telling those stories and making the connections of what has passed through the shop and what is now how it's going to be used for forever or for a long time. um, I think that's where the impact is. It's like, huh, like I actually did like some old lady is gonna walk by my grind mark every day and it's gonna help her get to the next floor. Now that sounds very simple and not very like impactful, but if you think about you know that lady's life like and what she's doing, like it makes an impact. So
Mm. Yeah. I love it. One of my big soapbox topics is construction as a whole needs to do a better job of telling the stories and the human impact
mm,
stories. And that's
yes,
exactly what you're doing there to make the connection real. That what we said at the beginning, that construction without the construction industry, civilization falls apart. And it's just not just you're building a cool building for the sake of building a cool building. It's think of the community impact that it has. That if that building wasn't there, what
yes,
would happen, and what potentially the kind of the devastation that would happen in that community without this one building and the ripple effect that has. So telling the human stories is crucial for sure.
and yeah, and not only that, but like every story that we tell on a day-to-day basis and every historical story that we think is important, like you could basically tell it through the eyes of construction, because everything we do involves construction. Like everything that we interact with, every
Yeah,
store we go to, every institution we're a part of, there's that story. So I totally agree. I think that's another topic with telling a better story for our young people to get involved in construction, like with the trades and technical college,
yeah,
um,
absolutely.
and making that real to them. So
Yeah, yeah, it's making construction cool again, and bringing it, taking the stigmatism of going into construction away, because it's a
Oh yeah.
stupid misperception of what the
Yep.
industry is, that people don't look at construction as having being the the land of opportunity and having a very robust career path opportunity,
Mhm.
and very kind of entrepreneurial mindset. Um, uh, I know that a lot of times when I tell people that I have a podcast about construction innovation and all the cool things that are happening in the industry, I get a little bit of a glass over look of like, okay, how much is there to construction? You're like, oh, there's a lot. There's a lot you don't know about. So for kind of other leaders in the construction industry, what would be kind of your advice to them about balancing the growth values and community involvement?
Um, well, I think that the community involvement, um, I think it's really important that we both contribute, which I believe that any business is contributing, and you got your tax dollars obviously, but so you're contributing in that way. But I think that there's a lack of leadership a lot of times from businesses that could be leading.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that, so I think community involvement is just really important. I think it's important for your business, like as a whole, to grow. But I think also it's really important that the community knows who you are and that you're there and that you care about. I think there's a misperception that a lot of businesses are just run by these extraordinarily wealthy people and all they care about is money and they just want to make money and they don't care about their people and da 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 da. And so, which I believe is completely untrue in 99% of cases.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, I think it's really important that we as businesses we are cornerstones and we are just always present in the community. So I think we do that through being involved in our chamber, being involved with sponsoring sports and supporting organizations that are around us, like all those things. I just think that's really really critical for not just the business as a whole, but also just society as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
As especially as generations grow up and get a perception of what business is and what owning a business is and entrepreneurship and all those things. So I think for me, as far as like we're very growth oriented, and so everything we do is based on maximizing potential. Like I just don't want to reach a point where I said, "Man, I wish we would have done that. We had potential to do something, we just didn't go for it."
Mm-hmm.
I really want us to, for our particular business, to just reach those goals. And so, but never at the expense of our values. So, like, really, values is first. We can't grow, we can't support the community, we can't do anything if it contradicts our value, right? Our values.
Right.
So, obviously that's kind of the filter that we look through everything. But if you're not growing, you're dying. So I believe that. And I think we've got to give back, and that's the community involvement part. And I think that's good for the community, but I think it's also good for the business, just
Mm-hmm.
like treating your employees right.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So kind of pivoting a bit, transitioning leadership between the generations can be a big challenge for any business. How has Porter Steel managed the kind of generational leadership transition?
Well, that's a good one. I haven't quite figured that out yet. Yeah, so my dad, like I said, he started the company in '83, and you know, very different generation. I think that you know the employee employer relationship was different in the
Mhm,
'80s and '90s than it is today. Like the
mhm,
working class generation is different. There's just all sorts of things that you have to kind of mold and adapt to. And I think
sure.
me being like a stereotypical or prototypical millennial is very different than him being, I guess, maybe a boomer. I don't know. And so just trying to figure out what how we operate differently, how we see things very differently. So for us, it worked okay. I think it worked pretty well that when he retired, I had worked in the business several times, so it was good for me to see how we operated, what my opinions of things were, things I might want to change, things that I thought were really good that we would keep the same.
Mhm.
And then when he retired, I came back to the business to work full time. So I had gotten experience in other places as well, and had that same perception of those places, and seeing like what I liked, what I thought was different, but
Mhm.
always having a very entrepreneurial desire, and always having an entrepreneurial ambition. Um, so that was very much the lens that I looked through everything. And so um, I think, well, if I had to give advice, it would be that anyone from different generations have to look at the other person and understand that there is a difference there. There's a difference of experience, and that's okay. That it's kind of like on some political issues, it's like you can look at somebody and just say like, "Hey, it's okay that we disagree. We don't have to hate each other. We could just agree to disagree on this." Um, but I think that the biggest thing for me was trying to implement the core values and the mission, and holding people to it, not just being a plaque on the wall.
Mhm.
And like I said, my dad's, he had values and he had mission, but it wasn't something that everyone could rally around because it just wasn't put out there. It was just do what I say, and this is what we do. And so it's just a different generation, but also just a different mindset as far as how we want to do business. And not to say it's better, but it's what I envisioned. So it's
Mhm.
what I need that for me to feel like I'm being successful. I need to do it this way.
Mhm.
I don't really know if I'm answering the question, but you know, that's kind of
Yeah,
what I got
no,
right.
absolutely. I think it's a pretty uh, I can't think of the right word that I want, but insightful on your take the time to kind of understand the other person's perspective and the
Mm.
differences there. And it's funny because it seems almost kind of radical now that you could sit down and talk with somebody that you disagree with on certain things, and have a reasoned, rational conversation and not get heated. Uh, it's a maybe a sad indictment on where we are.
Right.
That is like, oh wow, that's a thought provoking thing. You could sit down and have a conversation, but that's the key to anything. Hosting the podcast is one of my favorite things because I get to hear all these different perspectives. And what I find interesting in the construction industry more broadly is, you have all these kind of turf wars and rivalries between the architects and the GCs and the subs and the engineers, and nobody really likes each other, but you're forced to work with each other. But if you took the time on the front side to kind of sit down at the table and hash out what your motivations are and what you're trying to get out of the project, most people are pretty similar on the same page. You might be using it
Oh yeah.
differently, and the terminology that you're using is different, and that can lead to some misunderstandings. But everybody's on the same team and pulling in the same direction. We just kind of assume, uh, bad motives maybe on
Yeah.
different people, and if we open up that conversation, more people than you realize are willing to have an honest, frank, easy conversation,
Right.
even if the
Yeah, we're all on
topic
the
is
same
hard.
team.
Yeah.
We're all doing we have the same goal, is to have a successful project, and I want the partners that are working on it to be successful, because they need to be around to continue to be a good partner. If they're not successful, then they won't be around very long. So I think that's key, is just like looking at, we have to look at the people involved as an essential part of what we're doing, and not my enemy, even though it
Mhm.
can feel like that sometimes. So I think, it's all about the perspective and the attitude and like frame of
Mhm.
mind. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Back to the relational instead of
yep.
the transactional from earlier. So, how have you tried to kind of merge the maybe the more traditional perspective of work with kind of the newer, innovative ideas of newer generations coming into the workforce?
Um, well, we've from the very get go, we've been very patient, because we knew it's not a quick process. It's not something where you just snap your fingers and one day it's different.
Mm.
So we've we really had to come into it before we did anything with a lot of patience and just intentionality on knowing that this is going to be a process. This is going to take some time. But if we do it the way that we're planning to do it, we believe that it will be successful in the end. And so we've given people, especially people that are very resistant to change and maybe are from, have been doing this a long time or, we want to give them a lot of space and a lot of opportunity to come on board,
Mm-hmm.
And so the analogy we've kind of used is like, hey, a new train has pulled up to the station and it's going to sit here in this station for a while. And so you're going to have a long time to get on the train. And I'm going to let you know, I'm going to ring some bells before that train leaves and you're going to have lots of notice. But at some point, the train's going to leave the station,
Mm-hmm.
And so my ask is, if I want you to get on the train, if you don't want to get on the train, you don't have to get on the train, and that's nothing personal. But the train might leave without you. So, that's kind of been our like analogy we've used, and thankfully, most people, almost all of the people, have been very willing to get on the train when they were ready to. Like they might have tiptoed on, like stuck one foot on, and kind of on and off, but that's really been something that we've had to be, because I'm a go next thing kind of person, and so
Yeah.
and several of us in the leadership are like that, and so. But I think it's been a really good exercise in stretching ourselves, being more patient, waiting a little bit. I think that's been really key. I think the other thing is being able to have hard conversations with people, because I think if you have that harder conversation sooner rather than later, it can change their trajectory, instead of the hard conversation being the last conversation of like, okay, this isn't going to work out anymore, And so that's been, I think what was really good is that I was in leadership here for a while before I could make a lot of changes. So I was having to have hard conversations, but usually the hard conversations were towards the end of like, hey, this is it, And so that was good practice for being able to kind of implement embracing the conflict. And once you do that enough, I think people know that like, hey, wait a second, conflict with Cole is not bad. It's good because we're trying to improve. There's friction because we need to improve. We need to fail forward. And that it's a good thing. We're growing, So,
Well, and you're showing
yeah, that's
that
fun.
you actually care enough to have the
Oh
hard
yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what drives you to do the hard conversation, is that you do care,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think people that are, if you always are avoiding the hard conversation, the employee picks up on that and like, oh, well, they don't care enough about my growth and my personal development to,
mhm.
really kind of push me in. Yeah. I think it's important to have kind of high standards and then walk alongside
Right.
the employee to be like, I'm going to be right here with you to help you in this journey, in this process. But I mean, you have to do the hard work on yourself
Yeah.
too. But I'm here. I'm a support in this process.
Yep. And what's really cool is to see people that have been maybe kind of static for a really long time, and then you kind of go through those steps, and no one would have thought they could have grown because they
Mm-hmm.
just hadn't in so long. But then all of a sudden you see growth, and you're like, wow, like no one thought that was going to happen, but it did. That's
Mm-hmm.
really cool. You've reached a new level of potential because someone cared enough to have a tough conversation or to challenge you or to say like this isn't good enough.
Yeah.
And that's really rewarding and kind of amazing to sit and see that. So
Yeah. That's awesome. So let's ring the train bell there. Where do you see Porter
yeah.
Steel kind of going in the next decade and really uh, kind of part B on that? Where do you see the industry at large going over the next decade?
Oh man. Well, for Porter Steel, so we historically, all of our growth from 1983 to about 2021 was all in North Georgia, in the Atlanta metro, basically, with
Mm-hmm.
very few exceptions and favors where we would leave that area to go do something for a customer or something like that. And so, one thing that we have aspired to and is very much a part of our goals is we want to be the leading provider of miscellaneous metals in the Southeast. And, we're very unique in the fact that we do turnkey steel. So we do structural steel and miscellaneous metals, and we fabricate and we erect. We don't do really large erection. So like, 4 stories and under, that's our specialty on the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So in that space, our customer is the general contractor. But we also provide miscellaneous metals to larger structural fabricators who do not do miscellaneous metals. And so on really large, massive projects, stadiums and massive new facilities that they're building, all these big economic development projects you hear, those are structural steel companies going up and doing really large jobs. And then we come in and we do all the rails and stairs and mezzanines in that. And so that is like our business is shifting to where we never used to work for any other fabricator to where we're doing a lot of work for other fabricators because there's a need in that space for good partnership. And so those are our two market segments, and we're also working in the Southeast now. So, we're working on increasing capacity because we are limited in some of our location and things like that. But over the next really 6-ish years, we plan to be in all of the surrounding states. We already are in small degree, but we're very excited about some of the partnerships that we have. We have some really good customers that are doing really great work, both on the general contractor side as well as the fabrication side. And they understand what we do. Over the next, 7 to 10 years, I really think that we have that opportunity to be known in every state in the Southeast and maybe up even on the Eastern Seaboard with the amount of work that we're doing and the partners that we have. I think that, the big motivation for that is that we believe that our mission and our values are really important and that they can be a good example. And so, whether that's another business seeing what we're doing and embracing that, or whether it's government and legislators saying like, hey, they're important people to talk to. We want us being able to influence that. Whether it's just our community being impacted by a successful business giving back, like we want to change lives and lead by example. And so we're hoping that we are able to lead by example by just broadening our reach. And one other thing is that I think is really important to what we're doing is we've always given to some degree in our local community, but we started doing a new program where we go into all these places and do projects and then make money and then we leave. And so we kind of felt convicted that we needed to be a better steward of that. And so now we give a donation to a nonprofit in every community where we actually do a project. So we're just leaving that a little bit better. And we're not making a huge impact with that. But if everyone did that, we believe that would make such an impact in communities across the country, really.
Yeah.
And so that's a passion of ours that we want to, let people know about and invite them to partner with us on.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. I love that. How do people find out more information on what you guys are doing at Porter Steel and connect with you?
Yeah, so you can go to our website at portersteel.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Porter Steel Inc. And we try to stay pretty up to date on all the social media just to let people know what we're doing and how you can partner with us.
Yeah, I love that. That is not as common as you may think. The social media awareness needs to go up for sure in construction. So one of our kind of core tenets of the show is around innovation. What does innovation mean to you?
Oh man, I really think that innovation is leadership. I think that like good leadership, innovation takes risk because it's not something that already exists. It takes courage to do something different. I think that you can be successful maintaining the status quo because it's been proven that you can do it. But I think that innovation not only can benefit yourself, but I think that it's something that it's a gift as well. You're creating a new status quo. So I think that whether you are creating a new piece of technology, which is something I haven't talked about today, or whether it's, being a company that traditionally would not focus on values and mission and those kind of things, like, or giving, like those are, we need to all use the creative ideas inside of us that were given to us to share with others. And I think that's a huge part of innovation is just taking the risk to share those things with others and give that back to society.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In my mind, innovation can take many different forms from technology. Obviously, that's where most of our brains go, but some of the most innovative things is really around the culture and the leadership side, or I love the being willing to take a risk,
Mm-hmm.
whatever venue, whatever form that looks like. That's the seed of innovation there for sure.
Yeah.
So, final question for you: if I could give you all construction power, you could snap your fingers and innovate one thing, what would you pick to innovate?
Oh, goodness. What would I pick to innovate in all of construction? I probably would. Mm, I have a lot of frustration with government when it comes to construction.
Join the club. Yeah.
So, I think that I don't think government does a good job at anything. So I think that sometimes they create regulations that are intended to have a result that create a different one. So, like when government says like not to exceed bids, or we won't accept change orders on this project, or those kinds of things. Like there should be something where there could be professionals run construction for the government. And I know we try, and I think Georgia does a better job than a lot of states, um, but I think being a taxpayer and knowing a lot of taxpayers and also being on the construction side of it, I think that we could do a better job. And also not picking the most expensive design for my tax funded project. That would be something good too. So I'll
Yeah,
stick with that. I
I
don't know
like
if
it.
that answers.
That's a good one. That would be a really big snap.
Yeah.
For sure. Well,
Yeah.
Cole, thanks so much for taking the time and joining the show today. This was great.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.